Hello students, today's agenda is to check your homework. We're going to learn about translations and you will be working on 7.3. Today students will be able to identify the effect of translations on graphs. So let's start by graphing some very basic functions. So if we have f of x equals x, my graph will basically look like this. But translation means to move or slide, glide, okay? Just move up or down, to the right or to the left, okay? And if I have f of x equals x minus 3, then basically what that's gonna do is that it's gonna go down, okay? It's going to slide down. And so it's gonna be 1, 2, 3. And so instead of the original being here, my new graph will be here. Okay, so basically what happens is that the whole graph, my whole line, is gonna move down 3 spaces. If I have f of x is equals to x plus 5, then we're adding 5 is gonna make it go up 5 spaces. And so basically my line will look something like this. Moving it, instead of being here on starting at the origin and then 1, 1, 1, 1, it's gonna be a 5 and then 1, 1, 1, 1, okay? Now what if we have f of x equals x plus 2, but we put the 2 inside of a parenthesis? So let me put symbols in here. If you can go back to your previous graphs, this is gonna make it go down because it's outside of a parenthesis. This is gonna make it go up because it's outside of the parenthesis. But whenever we have a parenthesis, this is gonna make it go either left or right, but the opposite. If it's positive, it makes it go to the negatives, okay? So it goes to the left. How many spaces? In this case it's 2. So my line will go something like this. Okay, it moved 2 spaces to the left. What do you think is gonna happen if I put minus in here? I'm gonna give you a list in a minute of how this summarizes, but it relates to, I don't know if you recall from Unit 6, of having extra items or being 2 months ahead, or having 2 items less than from the total, or etc., etc. But again, I'm gonna give you a full list so that you can remember unit 6. Okay, if we have f of x equals, between parentheses, x minus 3, again this means left or right because it has parentheses, but remember that it's the opposite. Instead of going to the negatives, it's going to go to the positive 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, my line will be translated to 3 spaces to the right. Okay, when it's minus, 3 spaces to the right. You might want to review this because people get confused. With this, when there is no parentheses, up and down is easy. but then they get confused with left or right. Remember that if it's plus inside of a parenthesis, goes left. Minus inside of the parenthesis, it goes to the right. Now, what if I have a different type of function? And I'm gonna use, you can put f of x, or you can just put y equals x squared. This gives me a parabola okay? And if I have y equals x squared plus, oops, plus 2, okay? Y equals x squared plus 2. Remember that if I go too fast, you can always just rewind the video, or you can pause it. So in here, you have the parabola, but then you're adding 2, and it's outside of the parentheses, so you're gonna go up. Remember that if there is no parentheses, it goes up. And so in here, you have your parabola, and the whole parabola just translates 2 spaces up. If we have y equals x squared minus 3, so if there is no parentheses, remember what do we have to do? It makes it go down. So 1, 2, 3, and my parabola opens up. So some people get confused and they say 1, 2, 3, and then they turn it around. That's completely different. We're gonna learn about those type of transformations later on. But if we're subtracting 3, all you're doing is subtracting 3 to all the points, okay? The original is in here, so this point goes down 3, this point goes down 3, this point goes down 3. So the whole parabola is moving 3 spaces, okay? What about y squared equals, y equals, but then in here you have the parentheses, and you're adding 4 inside of the parentheses. See, notice how this is the x squared, but then you're adding 4 inside of the parentheses. So we have that same parabola, but because you're adding 4 inside of the parentheses, remember, adding inside means left or right, the opposite direction. So instead of going to the positives, it's gonna go to the negatives. Okay, so my parabola, instead of being here, the original will be here, but it's moving 4 spaces, so this graph should be right here. Okay, inside of the parentheses, plus goes left, minus right. So let's do that one with y equals x minus 1 to the second power. Since it's minus, it's going to go to the right 1 space. So instead of being here, my parabola will be 1 space, but to the right. Okay, so my parabola is right here. Okay, let's go to a different one. And so we have y equals x cubed. That's a different type of graph. The x cubed will give you a graph that looks something like this. Again, if you add or subtract outside of the parentheses, it goes up or down. Let me put it, let's see if I can fit. So x cubed plus 2, and then I'm gonna also graph x cubed minus 4. Okay, so remember, there is no parentheses, it goes up or down. So it's gonna go up 2 spaces, and this will be this point. So from there, my graph will go something like this. Okay, in here, you're translating 4 spaces down. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4. This is this point right here. And so again, it goes up on one side, and then it opens down on the other side. Okay, so up or down with no parentheses. With parentheses, we're gonna have something similar, the same graph, but going or translating to the left or to the right. If we're adding 1, remember, it's not gonna go to the positives, instead it's gonna go to towards the negatives. And in here, instead of going to the left, it's going to go to the right. Okay, so 1 space, and it opens up in a similar way. Remember that the type of graph depends on the type of equation that, or function that you have. Okay, this is a cube, this is the type of graph that it creates. This is a cube, it's the same graph but with a translation. And how many spaces do we move it? 1, 2, 3. And so same graph, but it has translated 3 spaces to the right. So again, I just want you to see that when there is no exponent, it's a line, and then the translations is just going up or down or left or right. Okay, the square creates a parabola, but then the translations, when you're adding or subtracting, that just makes the parabola go up, down, left, right. And finally, the cube makes this type of shape, that type of graph, and again, you just go up or down, left or right. Okay, finally, I'm gonna give you just really fast so that you can kind of recall. Let me zoom out. So you might wanna pause it right now so that you can write this if you don't remember. So remember that if you have a function, it's just like getting, like, I remember giving an example about shirts. If you add 2 outside of the parentheses, it means that you have 2 extra shirts or 2 extra items. If you subtract 2 from the outside, you have 2 items less. If you add 2 inside of the parentheses, that means that you add 2 to the input, means that you are 2 months ahead. Okay, either with payments or obtaining shirts. And if you subtract 2, that means that you're subtracting 2 months, so you're 2 months behind. For example, if you don't pay 2 months of bills, then you're 2 months behind. If you don't buy shirts and you plan to buy shirts every month, but then there are 2 months that you didn't buy, you're 2 months behind. Okay, so that's what it means, and that's why it basically translates the graph. Okay, if you want to take a minute to analyze this, you can do that, or take note of it, then you can pause the video. And again, when you're adding outside, it goes up. When you're subtracting outside, it goes down. When you're adding inside of the parentheses, it goes left. And when you're subtracting inside of the parentheses, it goes right. Okay, with this information, you're basically going to be doing only translations. this is just for you to go back to it, but in reality, you're gonna be focusing on the graphs. Okay, have fun doing 7.3.